I want to share something very personal with you today. A story that is not just mine, but belongs to many women out there who find themselves trapped in silence and pain. This is the story of how I escaped a toxic relationship and found healing through faith. It's a journey of darkness, despair, and ultimately hope. When I first met him, I thought I was lucky. He was charming, attentive, and made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. He spoke sweet words, planned romantic dinners, and showed a side of himself that I had only dreamed of. I believed that this was the love I had always prayed for, the kind of love that would make all my worries disappear. But love, I would soon learn, is not always what it seems. The first cracks appeared subtly. His compliments started to feel like chains, his care like control. He would question who I talked to, what I wore, and where I went. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself, he just cares too much. I thought maybe this was normal, or maybe I was just too sensitive. After all, love is supposed to make sacrifices, isn't it? But sacrifice shouldn't feel like losing yourself. Over time, the subtle questioning grew into sharp accusations. His charm vanished, replaced by coldness and anger. He would shout at me over the smallest things, a missed call, a different opinion, a laugh he didn't approve of. I remember the nights I cried silently, begging God to make the pain stop. But I stayed because I told myself that love means enduring hardship. I thought I was strong enough to change him. One night, after a disagreement that left me shaken, I sat alone in the darkness of my room. I felt lost and scared. The man I once loved was becoming a stranger. My heart was bruised, but my spirit was even more wounded. I realized I was living in a prison built by love's lies. That night I whispered a prayer, a desperate plea for strength and guidance. God, if you are there, please help me find my way. The next day I tried to hold on to the hope that things could get better. But the cycle of control and cruelty only tightened. He isolated me from my friends and family, telling me they didn't care about me or wanted to hurt me. I believed him because the loneliness made me vulnerable. I started to doubt myself, wondering if I was the problem. This is the nature of toxic relationships. They erode your sense of worth and replace it with fear and self-doubt. But deep inside, a small spark refused to die. It was my faith, the belief that God had not abandoned me even when I felt most alone. One afternoon, while scrolling through my phone, I came across a message from a friend I hadn't spoken to in months. She simply wrote, "You are stronger than you know. I'm here if you need to talk." That small message felt like a lifeline. I reached out, and slowly I began to rebuild connections I had lost. With my friend's encouragement, I started to attend church again. At first I was hesitant, feeling unworthy of the prayers and warmth of the congregation. But the sermon spoke directly to my heart. Messages about God's unconditional love, His healing power, and the courage to stand up for oneself. One Sunday, the pastor said something that changed everything for me. You are a child of God, created in His image, worthy of love and respect. No one has the right to diminish your value. Those words pierced through the fog of shame and fear that had clouded my mind. For the first time in a long time, I felt hope stir within me. Faith was not an instant fix. Healing was painful and slow. I faced days when I wanted to give up, when fear whispered lies that told me to stay silent. But each prayer, each scripture, each moment of worship added strength to my spirit. I began to understand that faith was not just about believing in God's existence, but trusting in His plan for my life. I wasn't alone. God was walking with me every step of the way. With newfound courage, I told my abuser that I was leaving. The anger and threats that followed were terrifying, but I held on to God's promises. I reached out to support groups, counselors, and my church community. They became my refuge, a safe place to share my story without judgment. Leaving was the hardest thing I ever did. It felt like stepping off a cliff into the unknown, but I was no longer falling alone. I was held by the hands of faith, hope, and love. After the escape, the journey of healing began. I had to confront the wounds left behind, the fear, the self-doubt, the loneliness. Therapy helped me unpack years of pain, but it was my faith that gave me resilience. I learned to forgive, not my abuser, but myself for staying too long, for believing lies, and for doubting my worth. Forgiveness freed me from bitterness and opened my heart to love again. Not just romantic love, but love for myself and for God. Slowly, I started to rebuild my life. I pursued dreams that had been buried under fear. I surrounded myself with people who uplifted me. And most importantly, I learned to listen to my own voice, guided by the quiet whisper of God's love. Today I stand before you as a woman transformed, not perfect, but healing. My story is a testimony of God's power to redeem the broken and bring light into the darkest places. If you are watching this and feel trapped in a toxic relationship, I want you to know 3 things. First, you are not alone. There is a community of people who want to support you. Second, you are worthy of love and respect. Never forget that. And third, healing is possible. With faith, courage, and support, you can reclaim your life. I know it won't be easy. The path to freedom is often fraught with fear and uncertainty, but remember this: God's love is stronger than any darkness you face. When you feel weak, He is your strength. When you feel lost, He is your guide. My prayer for you is that you find the courage to take that first step, whether it's reaching out for help, saying no to abuse, or turning your heart to God. Because there is life beyond the pain. There is hope beyond the tears. There is healing beyond the hurt. And it starts with faith. Thank you for listening to my story. May it inspire you to hold on to hope, to seek help, and to believe in the healing power of God's love.